Good morning, Shavua Tov, Rechavia Nachlaot. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. And Baruch Hashem, we have the great zchut to be learning together. It's a great way to start the week, a great way to start your mornings, to learn our Tanya together. We are inching towards the end of chapter 7, Perek Zayin of Sha'ar ha-Yichud ve'emunah. And in the original Tanya Text, it's page Pei Daled, 84, Pei Daled, which corresponds to 166 over here in the original text. Last week, we discussed at great length the concept of how HaShem being part of the world in his essence, at the same time, is really not here. In other words, he's here, but he cannot be grasped. Unlike anything else that we know to be, that we know in our materialistic world, by Hashem is not limited in any way, shape, or form. We put a greater focus on the Soviv Kol Almin, the encompassing level of Hashem's eminence, which comes to the world. And now we're going to put a greater focus on the Memale Kol Almin, the level that Hashem fills the world. Each and every creation in its individual way. So let's continue. Memale Kol Almin, level of godliness that fills the world, hi b'chinat ha-Chayut ha-Mitlabeshet, is a level of life which becomes enclosed toch etzem ha-Nivra, inside the creation, totally inside. Shehi mitzumtzemet b'tocho, which this is very limited in it, b'tzimtzum rav, with a great level of limitation. Kefi erech mahut ha-Nivra, like according to the level of the being of the creation, shehu bal gvul, which is a level of which is limited, the tachlit, bekamuto ve'echuto, the hainu ma'alato v'chashivuto, which means on his own level. Each nivra, each creation is limited according to his size. So, for example, if you'll have a tall person which will wear a shirt of a short person, or shoes, or whatever it is, then, or a jacket, then it's not going to be according to his size. And the same thing, if someone will consume something which is not appropriate for that specific quality of that person, then it can be chalila detrimental to the person. So every person has to know themselves and to try to both dress and also take in what is specifically appropriate for that specific person. When it comes to Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem knows the exact measurement of godliness which needs to be enclosed within that specific object. And there are obviously an extremely great number of creations, and in order to know each one, you have to be Hashem. Actually, when it comes to Adam Arishon, Hashem is the one who enclosed himself within every object. Adam Arishon, the first man, it says in the Torah in the first Parashat Bereshit, that Hashem, he was the last creation. He was created a few hours before Shabbat, the first Shabbat. And Hashem passed by him all of the animals, all the different types of animals. And as they passed by him, he called them their names. So the Maggid of Mezrich, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov and the teacher of the Alter Rebbe, asks an obvious question. What's the great big deal that the Adam Arishon called every animal with its name? Anyone that makes up a language can say, okay, this is called a cow, that's called a a sheep, and a lion, and so on and so forth, every animal. In any language. Why do you have to be such a great genius? What's the big deal that he called the animals by their names? The answer is that Adam Arishon had a laser vision. He was a tzaddik. And he was able to look deep down into the animal and to realize what is the Lashon Kodesh name. What is the name that HaShem has given in the holy language of Lashon HaKodesh? Those are the letters which are deep, deep down. So only HaShem is able to know which measure, which type of emanation of godliness fits each individual specific animal. But Adam Arishon was able to know what the definition, to define what the name really is for that specific being, creation. In that case, it was an animal. So Kadosh Baruch Hu knows the exact measurement, and that's what Namala Kalaman means, to bring inside every single object the exact amount of godliness which fits for him. Now the Alter Rebbe himself brings an example. Kigon, for example, Hashemesh, the sun. The sun is actually perhaps the greatest creation that we have in this world. I already said a bracha before the class. L'chaim. Kigon HaShemesh, for example, the sun. Shagufo, that the sun globe, yesh lo gvul v'tachlit b'kamuto. It has a limit. To us, to receivers of the sunlight and the intense heat, it seems like the sun is bli gvul, ein sof, unlimited. But you should know that there is a limitation. Ask the scientists. But we don't have to ask the scientists. The Alter Rebbe brings it himself. Shehu kamo kuf samach zayin pamim, which is approximately 167 times kegodel kader aretz, like the size of the planet Earth. The Rambam, as we learned last week, several days ago, in Hilchot Yesod HaTorah, on the laws of the first laws that the Rambam opens with, in chapter 3, he says that the sun is larger than the earth around 170 times. The Alter Rebbe writes over here, which is kamo, like kuf samach zayin pamim, 167, which is also around 170. And also in Hilchot Shavuot, which the Alter Rebbe, the Rambam writes over there, in Hilchot Shavuot, if someone vows the accuracy of a certain thing, and he brings an example of the sun, how much larger the sun globe is from the planet Earth, he writes that he writes the exact amount. The Rambam in the Pirush HaMishnayot, he writes it's 166 and 3/8 times larger than the planet Earth. The Rebbe, in one of his letters in the book of Igrot Kodesh, volume 22, the Rebbe discusses the question that a scientist wrote to him, that the sun globe is larger than the planet Earth, not 167, but 4 or 5 million times or more. That's what he asked the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said that it's not news that scientists don't know what they're talking about. He says, over here we're talking about the circumference of the sun. That's the exact amount that the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe are referring to, the exact circumference of the, and I'm sure if you look at the letter, you'll be able to learn more details of this issue. In any case, the bottom line is that the sun globe does have a limitation. It's not just Ein Sof. Just because the impact is so strong for us as human beings that we feel that it's not, we feel that it's not limited. It does have a limit. Let's continue in the text. Ve'echuto, and its quality, u'ma'alato, and its greatness, hu'oro, which means the light, the ray of the sun. Gam ken yesh lo gvul. It also has a limit. Ad kama yuchal laha'ir. How far, how much, in what quantity can it light, can it shine? Ki lo ya'ir lebilti tachlit. It's not going to light, it's not going to shine to no end. Me'achar shehu nivra, since it's a creation. And every creation has a limit. V'chein kol ha'nivraim, and so too all of the creations, heim ba'alei gvul v'tachlit. That was an example of the sun. But all of the creations have limits and boundaries. For example, this is a quote from the Talmud, that from the earth to the first heaven, the first sky, it would take 500 years to walk. And there are 7 skies. Each sky itself is also Tafkuf Shana. It would take to walk 500 years. And between every sky heaven is also 500 years. So basically, it might be huge. It might seem to us as if it's Ein Sof, but it's not really Ein Sof. Every creation has some kind of limitation in some way, shape, or form. So the best example is to bring an example from the sun, because that's the most powerful, awesome seeming creation of HaShem. But even that has a limitation. Let's continue in the text. The im came, and if so, ha-Yichud ha-melubeshet bahem, the life which is enclosed within them, he bibchinat tzimtzum rav v'yatzum, is a very strong tzimtzum, a limitation of the light. It's a very strong limitation. Because first it has to have tremendous limitations of the light, contractions and lessening of the light, diminishing of the light. Atzumim, tremendous ones. Ad sheyithaveh mikocha ve'ora, to the extent that it will be created from its energy and its light. Etzem hanivraim kemot shehem, the creations themselves as they are, ba'alei gvul v'tachlit, individuals of limitation to the utmost extent. So since the godly life force, which creates all the creations, as it is from HaShem, is not limited, therefore, in order to enclose within the mitlabesh, as we've been talking about recently, within the physical dimensions of the creations of HaShem, it needs to come down with tremendous diminishing until it comes down, and it can come down into the actual object. Let's continue. Ki makor ha-Yichud hu ruach piv shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the source of the light is the spirit of the mouth of Hashem, so to speak. Hamitlabesh ba'asara ma'amarot shabatorah, which encloses itself into the 10 utterances of the Torah. As we learned in the beginning of Sha'ar, ha-Yichud ve'emunah, the gates of oneness of Hashem and creation of and faith in Hashem, that every single thing in the world was created from the letters of Hashem, from the beginning of creation, from the 10 utterances. There shall be light, there shall be heavens, and so on and so forth. So the life force of Hashem is the quote-unquote speech of Hashem, which encloses itself within the words of the 10 utterances of the Torah, within the Torah of Hashem. In other words, when a person speaks, there is the ruach, piv, the spirit of the mouth, which gets enclosed into the words that a person says. So too, and in infinite levels higher, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the spirit of his mouth, so to speak, becomes enclosed into the words of the 10 utterances of the Torah and anything that Hashem says. The ruach pivit barach, and the spirit of Hashem, the blessed be He, ha-Yichud litpashet le'en ketz v'tachlit, could have been able to be spread out to no end. V'livro olamot en ketz v'tachlit, and to create worlds which have no end or limitation, lekamutam ve'echutam, to their quantity and quality, ulhachiotam ad, and to have them live, to give them life forever. V'lo haya nivra olam hazeh klal, and this world would never have been created. Because if it would have been straight from the Ruach Piv of Hashem, without any diminishing, without any limitations, then the world would not be able to exist at all. The spirit of Hashem on its own can go to no end, no limitation. Obviously much greater than the sun. So not only is Hashem's machshava not limited at all and connected to the Nivraim, but even the source of life force of Hashem's quote-unquote spirit of the mouth is also not limited at all. So what do we see from here? That besides for the great tzimtzum and diminishing from Hashem's machshava, so to speak, to Hashem's speech, so to speak, there have to be many, many more levels of tzimtzum and limitations and diminishing until it comes down into the physical world. Now is the parentheses. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nikra Ein Sof, for just like Hashem himself is called Ein Sof, Kach midotav upulotav, so too by his attributes and his actions, the Iyu v'gamo yichad, he and his garments are one. Hainu ha-Chayut hanimshechet mimidotav, shehein chesed v'rachamim, which means the life force which comes forth, emanates from his holy midot, his emotions, shehein chesed v'rachamim, which are kindness and compassion, Sha'ar midotav ha'kadoshot, and his other holy midot, al yidei hitlabshutan, through his enclothing shemitlabshot b'ruach piv, which become enclosed with the spirit of his mouth. Amar vayehi, for he says, and there will be ve'olam al yidei chesed yibaneh, and the world through chesed, through kindness, should be built. B'dvar ha'avayeh, with the word of Hashem, b'ruach piv, and the spirit of his mouth, hanase kli ulevush l'chesed zeh, which becomes a kli, a vessel and a cloth, so to speak, for this chesed. Kahadein kamtza de levushe minei ubei. So in other words, just for the exact translation, like a snail, which is part of the shell, it's not a separate thing from the cloth. The shell is like its home and its clothed garment, and it's all one unit. So it's not like there's Hashem, and then the Chayoi, the life force, and then you have the Garmohi, the garments, and Chalila, that they're two separate things. No, it's all one. For us, it's impossible to understand that, because if you have an individual and you have a cloth you put on top, so you cannot cover over yourself. Even in halacha, we have a law that you can't cover over yourself. So, for example, you need to have a kippah. If someone doesn't have a kippah and just puts their hand on top of their head, you cannot cover over yourself, because it's one essence. So it's not covering. You need something external, something else to cover over and to remind you that there's a God. So you can't have your own self. You have to have something else, external. So it's hard for us to relate to the idea of coming to terms with the subject of HaShem being one with his garments. Because HaShem is not limited. He can decide in his infinite knowledge that he is one with his quote-unquote kelim, quote-unquote garmohi. So let's give you another example. Let's say if somebody has a strong feeling for their friend, and they want their friend to feel it. If they don't express it in words, then the fact itself that the person felt feelings for their friend is still not going to enable the recipient to receive the love, to receive the feelings of affection. You have to bring it down into words. It's like a famous joke that the couple after 70 years of marriage, they come to the rabbi, they want to have a divorce. So the rabbi says, after 70 years of marriage? So she says, he never tells me that he loves me. So he says, what do you mean? I told you under the chuppah. And if there will be any change, I'll let you know. And so obviously there has to be the expression, either in speech or in action, that either a person says, I love you, you tell a person, and you there are words of love and affection. And also there are gifts and the things that can be done that a person does. But if you don't say it, if you don't express it, there's no way for the person to know so. By HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's nothing which covers over. HaShem, in all of his glory, shines right through all of the kelim, even those things which are meant to cover over. Even the vessels which are supposed to help reveal and conceal, they ultimately reveal itself. Also, because they're all part of the revealing to the world of Hashem's greatness. So since Chesed, for example, is one with Hashem, so when it becomes unified with Hashem, then it's not separated. It's like the snail, which is one with its shell. The shell doesn't cover over, it covers over. But in a sense, it's one unit, it's one concept, it's not separate. I believe it's created together even, and it protects it, but it's also part of its being. Ella, the only thing is, quote unquote, Ella, that Hashem has limited the light and the life force in order that it should be able to be spread out from the spirit of his mouth, so to speak. He'll be sure, and he clothed it within the combinations of letters of the 10 utterances, as we learned all the way in the beginning of the Sha'ar ha-Yichud ve'emunah. The tzirufei, and the combinations of the combinations. The chilufei utmurot ha'otiyot, with interchanging the letters. Atzman, the letters themselves. Uvecheshbonan, and in their calculations, the gematrias. Umisparan, and the numbers. In other words, if we want that Hashem's greatness should be able to come into this world, and it should not be unlimited, and so that we should be able to receive Hashem's greatness, we have to borrow. We have to always go back to the 10 utterances, the Asara Ma'amarot, and to bring from those letters through different interchangeable ways that we've talked earlier, and different combinations. In order, each combination, each time we change it, that is another step away from the first words that Hashem said, so to speak, in the 10 utterances. And that brings the light of Hashem, the emanation, to be able to be more receptible for us in our world, in our realm. Thank you so much for joining us. Bezrat Hashem will continue tomorrow, Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. Please spread the word so we can have, Bezrat Hashem, more and more people share this shiur together with us. And of course, Tuesday night we'll have, Bezrat Hashem, our regular class, going back to the seriously happy, even though it's the night before Tisha B'Av. We still have to learn Torah, and we'll be able to learn together the Chassidut, and also Tisha B'Av itself. We're going to have a program